Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the multiverse, to planeswalk through the blind eternities, to a variety of planes, and learn about the products of Magic the Gathering? Yes, that's what we're kind of going in today. Through the products, we're learning the lore, the cards. Yes, we're exploring the history of Magic the Gathering, product release by product release. And if you're ready to join me once again, I can open up the gates through the blind eternities and planeswalk you, as my guest, to these various realms, to these places where we can use his products. I, your host and guide here, Cantus Jordan, are ready to grab your hand and lead you, and if you are ready to take my hand, remember to tip your guide here, like, subscribe, ring the bell, as we track blind eternities once again. The worlds of Magic Gathering. Oh, jeez. Plane shifting is not easy with guests. I hope you enjoy the fact that I had to drag you all here, and that you're ready to learn. It took a lot, but we're here. Now, we're not particularly in any certain plane. Why is that? Because we're learning about From the Vault's Relics. This is the third of the From the Vault's sets. The series of sets where it was a bunch of kind of classic reprints in various topics. If you have seen my previous ones, it was Dragons and Exiles. And this won't be the last one. I think we get about 12 of these before they're done. So we're pretty close to the beginning of it. This had a limited edition set that was released in August 27th, 2010. And it had an MSRP, hey, they still, well, they're back, but they still exist at the time, of $34.99. Its symbol was this orb with a ring on it. Though we do know what this looks like in common, they were really well made these things here. There were four major individuals that were behind its development: Tom Lapile, Jeremy Jarvis, Mark Purvis, Mark Rosewater. It was 15 cards with an expansion code of V10, which is really interesting as the expansion codes really don't, well, they do kind of fit. The first one didn't have a V expansion code. This was the second one to have the V expansion code, and the rest of them since then. Anyway, here's the box, as it was seen. So in here, you get 15 black bordered cards that were in the 8th edition, the modern card frame. So that's an important part about this entire here. And they're also holographic treatment. That was a very unique holographic foil that was only in the From the Vault series, at very least at the time period. I don't know if they've used it for anything since then, but the From the Vault's holographic treatment was unique to them. So this was some time that some of these cards here were printed for the first time in modern card frame. So 9 of these cards, basically a little bit more than half of them, had new art for them. Some of that new art would be reused in other versions of some of these cards that came out. And in addition, it had a spin-down life counter that bears the expansion symbol and a special collector's guide. The cards are the main thing here in their special foil treatment that maybe have different art. Let's look at those cards, because I do have to say there's some interesting things here which we're going to talk about. There's a preview card in here. There's cards for the reserve list in here. Yeah, this one here is particularly a lot of a mess of stuff. So we really do have to look at all 15 of these. We had Aether Vial here, which puts charge counters on it and allows you to put creature cards into play. This one here was new art. This is a new art for Aether Vial. We had Black Vice, who also had new art. Hey, a classic from Unlimited. That, you know, if your opponent has... Well, they express it a lot better than it used to. This is the good wording here. At the beginning of a chosen opponent's upkeep, Black Vice deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of cards in your hand, -4. With a lot of cards in your hand, you take a lot of damage. Also new art was Iconon Scepter. It had an imprint, where you imprint a cheap instant, you exile it from your hand, and you can play copies of it. Pretty good. I like the Scepter. There's some good uses for it. Also new art, Ivory Tower, where if you have a lot of cards in hand, you gain a lot of life. Interesting that it was a kind of counter for Black Vice. This one came out in Antiquities, so it was a very old one still, also. A classic, Jester's Cap, Now, this was newer art. It came out in a reprint of Jester Cap, but this was original. This is not the original art of it, but this is when the in between the original printing in Ice Age, where you sacrifice it, basically remove 3 cards from an opponent's library, and they exile. You basically mill of your choice 3 cards from an opponent's library. Now we're going to talk about the first of the reserve list cards, Karn Silver Golem. Yeah, before reserve, there's one of them on it. We'll talk about this entire thing with reserve list a little later. But when it blocks, it becomes blocked. It becomes a 0/8, and it can turn an artifact or a non-creature artifact to an artifact creature with a converted mana cost, with a power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. So if it's cost 4, it's a 4/4. Cost 0, it's a 0/0 and dies. Doesn't have to target your. Interesting with new art and on the reserve slave, Masticore. Where to sacrifice it unless you discard a card, and for 2 mana you do 1 damage to a creature, and for 2 mana you regenerate this creature. Mirari had a reprint here. No new art. When you cast an instant sorcery spell, you can pay mana from it and copy it. I like Mirari. I have used it. I've had it in a couple of decks before. I think it's pretty powerful. There might be some cards that have gone beyond at this point in time, but again, like Karn is pretty good, even though it's on the reserve list. A lot of these are very good cards in general. So speaking on the reserve list, of course, is Mox Diamond from Stronghold, where when it enters the battlefield, it makes discard a land card. If you do, it stays in the battlefield, or you put it in the graveyard. You have to discard a land card in order to keep it in the battlefield and cast for any color mana, and it's cost 0. You know, it's a Mox. It's a Mox with a cost, but cast for any color mana. It's pretty good. And this is actually new art on it, too. Interesting speaking. Also on the reserve list with not new art is Memory Jar. You sacrifice it, each player exiles their hand, and then draws 7 new cards. At the beginning of the next end step, each player discards her hand and returns the cards exiled this way to their hand. So basically, you get rid of your current hand, everybody does that, draws 7 new cards. If you do this during your turn, you can play some of those 7 cards, and then you discard those cards and return your exiled hand. There's some pretty big combos that I think you can build with that. Especially because it's a great way if you're playing a deck that once you discard things to your graveyard, you get 7 in there pretty quick if you really need to. Mineral's Disc, which had new art at this point in time. This art will be, I believe, used again. Where it destroys all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Enters tap. So if you wait a turn before you use it. Hey! New art. This art looks familiar, though, doesn't it? Isn't this the standard Commander art? This is where it first came up. And this was big major reprints this time period. Before now, good old Sol Ring, a Commander staple. Last time we had seen it was revised. Think about it. Think about how old that is in between them. How many reprints of Sol Ring we've had since then. I'm not saying there weren't times it showed up in special things. But Unlimited, Revised, then From the Vaults was the first major thing. It wasn't until Commander 2011 that this comes out as a staple. So this was still very big back then, with its new one. Sundering Titan, who just is very mean, and it gets rid of basic lands. So basically, when it enters or leaves the battlefield, choose a land of each of the basic land types and destroy those lands. If I'm not playing basic lands, I don't have to worry about that. I just remove 5 basic lands, up to 10, of your opponents. And if you can flicker this thing, you just remove... It's a lot of land destruction. Kind of neat. Now, this didn't have new art. Because it was new art. The Sword of Body and Mind, which had a full release later on this year. This is a preview card from Scars of Mirrodin. This is the only place to get this card right now. Scars of Mirrodin, later on the same year that this was released, was when it was given a wide release. I do have a Sword of Body and Mind from Scars. But this was the first time we saw it in this set. So of course this is new art. It's the first... This is a new card. And we are seeing it in this special product. This was kind of neat, and I don't know if it's necessarily unprecedented, but this is not, we don't see a lot of this. So this is a preview card. I think we have seen other preview cards before and since then, but yeah. I think there have been a lot in various places, but we don't see it very much anymore. Basically, over the last couple years, there was in Ikoria Lair of the Beams Box Toppers was a preview from Commander Masters, and Mystical Archive had one from Modern Horizons 2. Those are the only two we've had since, like, some of the dual decks and stuff like that. Since they ended. The last one, the Lesson Curse was Shadows of Innistrad was the last time we had this. So this is not something Magic does a lot. So it's really cool to see. And then the final one in this was new art for Zuran Orb. Sacrifice a land, gain 2 life. Especially if you can play lands from the graveyard. This is a great kind of thing, gain some extra life. Or if you're playing something where you worry about land destruction. It's got some good things. Now showing the original versions of these 4, here's our reserve list. These 4 were on the reserve list. How did they print these? The reserve list existed in this time period. These were cards that were never supposed to be reprinted. Originally, this reprint policy was first published in 1996, revised in 2002, and again in 2010. Why was it revised in 2010? These guys here. Because in Dual Decks Phyrexian Coalition and from the Vault's Relics, because of certain rules, these were reprinted. Because the original rules up to 2002 meant they could not have a full release, but in premium or foil versions, they could be printed. Yes, it was a loophole that these reserve list cards could be printed as premium foils. Generally speaking, foils, premium, that kind of thing. And yeah, basically, Wizards exploited the loophole. People weren't really happy about the exploit of the loophole. You know, so yeah. It ended up that these ones would not be printed again. Granted, you know, the reserve list goes up to Urza's Destiny, so anything, there's a bunch of cards for Urza's Destiny, but if you go any set after Urza's Destiny, you don't have to worry about reserve, interestingly enough. But I'm not gonna lie, some of these things on the reserve list, and I don't know. Some of them, yes, some of them, no. It's a thing I think that needs to be technically looked at with the state of Magic Gathering, but hey, we're getting it front and center here of the reserve list and things on it. And I'd be curious if I don't think they've actually considered removing anything from it. Interestingly. There were some things removed from it in 2002. So I think the stuff can be removed from it. Like Sol Ring was on the reserve list. Sorry, I didn't notice that here in some notes. It's not like these couldn't evolve again. But yeah, at the time, exploited, bonus, these 4, they were printed again, technically, even though they were on the reserve list. Maybe they should just been removed from the reserve list. I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have. A lot of questions on that one. Will we get changes to the reserve list again? Who knows? But there you go. From Vault's Relics. Not a major product or set by any neat stretch of the means. It is a limited edition special premium set. Special foil cards, alternate art, some of which is shown again. Things like the Sol Ring. That version of Sol Ring shows up a lot. And yeah, it's interesting to see that we have these cards here, and we have things on the reserve list that are printed in here. We have a preview card in here. There's some crazy stuff in here. And there's just some really good cards in here. It's a really good set of cards. I have to say, in general. And if you want some really good artifacts, this might be it. I don't think the price is very reasonable at this point in time. $950 from TCG Play. In box. But technically used. I wouldn't even want to look at it. Still, nonetheless, we had a change in the reserve list. Because of the... Yes, I think Phyrexian Coalition Dual Deck kind of hinted at that change, but this one threw it front and center. The evolution and change of the reserve list. Because it had 4 cards in it. You know? Previously, last change, there's 1. 1 is different than 4. Yeah, the Phyrexian Negator. I know about this. 4 reserve list cards on here. This is just, it's a crazy product. Very interesting, very fascinating. Definitely, you know, inspiring in a lot of ways. And it shaped a little bit of Magic. It changed the way the reserve list looked. And that's why I think it's important to look at this, understand it, and be like, well, there's some cool set of cards. Also, they did a lot of crazy stuff around here and changed some of the ways things worked. The product's important when it does that. I mean, there's some, all the products are important. So it's really fun. But that'll be it for today. I hope you enjoyed diving into me on this one briefly into a From the Vaults product, and one that has echoes in the annals of Magic. Maybe more than some of the other From those Vaults products or some of these other premium products they released during this time period. But it does go to show you, they've always released some kind of premium product for a lot of years now. The From the Vault series, the Dual Deck series, all these kind of specialized series, these are premium products. So, yeah, we have a lot of them nowadays, but they've always tried those things, at least for the last couple of decades. If you want to see more of my stuff, I have a schedule that goes up. It is on my social medias, over on the community part of my YouTube. For my social media side, that's my Discord, Blue Sky, X/Twitter. Those are usually linked down below on my Twitch side, or over in the description on my YouTube side. That lets you know when I'm live over on Twitch, whether I'm doing some kind of tabletop, some kind of variety gaming, or something else, and everything that gets uploaded on my YouTube schedule. All the tabletop stuff is what's uploaded on my YouTube. That's my main place in tabletop. The schedule is pretty exact for YouTube, only if there's video problems, changes, and Twitch is a little bit more valuable. Hey, schedule is valuable from life schedule. Life stuff gets in the way. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. I hope you enjoyed today. Let me know what you think about From the Vaults Relics. You know, remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you're over on the YouTube side. Hey, I remember to mention that. But yeah, let me know what you think about this, and would you consider there are some other cards that are in the reserve list you removed from it? That's an interesting one here, because the reserve list comes up here. Certainly speaking, I can look at the reserve list and point at some cards and be like, you probably knew that one. Others, I'm like, that's fine to stay there, you know. There's definitely a mixture of stuff. Like, I guess they got rid of a lot of ending cards, which is just kind of weird. Storm Spirit's on the thing, and it's a flying 3/3, top deals 2 damage to target creature for 6 mana. Why is Storm Spirit on there? It just has to do 2 damage to a creature. See, that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, I think that could be removed. Wall of Kelp's in the reserve list. Aww. It's a wall that makes wall tokens. For mana, you can make wall tokens. You can put Kelp into play. God, reprint Wall of Kelp. Wall of Kelp love. Come on, everybody. Join me in Wall of Kelp love for Magic the Gathering. And I need to go. Bye, everybody. Farewell for now. Goodbye. Wall of Kelp love.